topic of today. And the topic is a little challenging for a lot of people. What I'm seeing is there's a lot of people that are having physical challenges. They are experiencing anything from mild colds to really, really very challenging situations. And when I'm working with my clients, one of the things that always happens in that first session, it's an 1.5-hour session, and a lot of the time I'll tape it for them. You know, I make a voice memo and they can re-listen to it because I give a lot of information. I have a whole workbook that I give to them, and in it is just kind of bits of what I'm talking about. So one of the things that I always share in the session is how we are with our feelings. And so there's fear and power feelings. And so when I'm working with my clients, especially for people who have anxiety, that's a really, really big one right now. And I'm going to go strictly with the feeling of anxiety as I'm describing this. Hi, Carla. It's good to have all you guys here. And Gigi, I know you know what I'm talking about when I say these things. So I think that a lot of times people don't have an understanding. Like just yesterday, I had an 11-year-old who has anxiety, and it's really kind of scary for especially young kids because they don't know what in the world is going on. They just know that they've got this feeling and it is consuming. So when my clients come in, one of the first things on every single session that I'm doing is I'm explaining to them how their body operates. I think for all of us, we've been taught that our mind is so important, that our mind is the most important thing. And to be clear, your mind is wildly important. Your heart is even more important. So when I'm talking about all of this and I'm explaining, it always goes like this. And so I'm going to give you guys a little dose of a session with me. And so when I'm explaining it, I'm telling them that their heart is always producing electromagnetic energy. And it is talking to the 50 trillion cells that make up us. And these, some of the things that I'm about to say aren't what I say in session, but I want to say with you all tonight. So ground and center myself and get into this conversation. So when our heart is producing electromagnetic energy, for all of us that are here right now, you all are watching me live and there's no strings attached, and we're all on an electromagnetic current. You know, we're all experiencing being connected here through nothing. So when our heart is producing electromagnetic energy, not only is it talking to the 50 trillion cells that make us up, but it's also talking to this quantum intelligence. And there's a really great exercise that they have done with this. When you get into quantum physics and you get into quantum entanglement and all of this, one of my favorite conversations around all of this is an experiment that was done where they took somebody's DNA, somebody just like you. They take your DNA, and there's this huge machine where they can see this empty space is filled with photons. It's filled with all kinds of things, but they can see these photons, right? And so before they take this person's DNA and put it in with the photons, these things are just free floating. They're just going around doing their thing, what photons do when they're not being attracted by something. So then they take the DNA, they put it in a sealed container, and they put it in with these photons. Now, this is how powerful you are, because we all do this. So they put that into the container, they put it into this machine, and they see that the photons start organizing around this person's DNA. So the person that they're showing, or the person that they're using the DNA, they're showing them videos to create feelings in their heart. So in the videos, they're creating feelings of love, of joy, and they're also creating feelings of fear, maybe anger, grief, whatever. So each time that the feelings are changing, the photons are changing and matching the person's feelings. So the person's way over here, and the machine's way over there, and every time the person's feelings change, the photons change. In fact, slightly before, believe it or not. So the other interesting part of this experiment that they did is they took the person and they started driving them away from the machine. And as they're driving them away from the machine, the feelings are continually changing, and they are changing the pattern that the photon is creating, the photons are creating. They drive the person literally 350 miles away, and the photons are still changing every time that the person's feelings are changing in the second. So when we think that it's just us here in these little human bodies in this little individual car, we are attached to something much, much bigger. And it's important to understand how our feelings are creating. Another thing that I thought was interesting as I'm studying all of this is, let me see if you guys, hey, Wes here. I've been owing you a phone call for a while, Wes. What would be a good compass to turn into? This house in... Right? Exactly. Exactly, Wes. So the other thing I thought was very interesting as I was studying all of this, they have satellites out there in the orbit, and they are monitoring electromagnetic energy on the planet. So as they're monitoring this electromagnetic energy, there was a day, see if anybody can guess what the day was, where they're monitoring it, and it went off the charts. The electromagnetic energy, the energy that we were all as a collective feeling, sent those things off the charts. Who knows what day that was? Anybody? Wes, you should know the answer to this one, I'm pretty sure. I'm going to give it a second. Anybody know what day it was? Boom! Gigi, you nailed it. 9/11. On 9/11, they're looking at the electromagnetic energy on the planet, and we were all experiencing terror, grief, rage, all of these really high emotions, and the scientists are looking at that and going, that's interesting. And so those two things alone, I think, are very interesting for understanding how our feelings, our emotions, that electromagnetic energy is creating into this intelligent universe. So I just wanted to say a little bit about that, but then we get into how our feelings are creating within our bodies. So when we're having that feeling of anxiety in particular, a lot of people are experiencing it right now. It's a very, very big deal. And when you're having those kind of feelings like anxiety, normally the energy is in our body, and we have an energy center, and the energy is usually in a flow. We're bringing in energy, and it goes through our body all day, every day. So when we're having a moment with anxiety, the heart is producing a vibration that matches that. And as the heart is producing that vibration, literally the energy leaves the center of our body and it goes into the extremities, because we go into that fight, flight, freeze. So we've got to do something. There's something going on. It's like, I gotta make something happen. So the energy moves to the extremities. That's one thing that happens. Another thing that happens is, in that feeling, the heart is talking to the brain, and the brain is saying, oh my gosh, we got to do things. We have to produce more adrenaline. We have to produce more cortisol. We got to produce more stress hormones. We got to make things happen. And so if you think about the car analogy, it's like we have the car in park, and the foot is all the way down on the gas, and on the inside of us, we are revving, okay? The other thing that's happening I'm going to address that in a little bit, Miss Jennifer. So the other thing that's happening, and I think this is a huge part of it, because when we feel anxiety, it's such a big one, and it's so, I think we feel so powerless. The heart is always talking to the 50 trillion cells that make us up. So each one of the 50 trillion cells, think about it, your lungs. So when we feel that anxiety, it's like we stop breathing. That's why sometimes when somebody's going through something, I literally have to just get them to breathe. Take a breath. Take a breath. Because when we can start breathing, then we can start grounding and centering and focusing ourselves and bringing ourselves more back to calm. The other thing is, all your muscles contract. I want you to think about it within your own body. A lot of times people feel stress here. They feel stress here, here, anxiety. They feel it in different parts of the body. So when you're paying attention to where your body experiences not only anxiety, but anger, rage, any of those kind of feelings, when you can start paying attention to where those feelings are at in your body, that's one of the clues you need to stop the car. But getting back to the 50 trillion cells, each one of them, the membrane, the outer part of the cell, is like the brain of the cell, and it reacts to electromagnetic energy. So when our heart is feeling that, it makes things happen, like the muscles tightening up and everything, but it also creates that element where we feel whatever in that part of our body. And remember that, because I'm going to come back to it in a few minutes. So when you're having whatever those feelings are, especially anxiety, there's a part of it when you can recognize, this is what's going on with my body. This is just a reaction from my thinking and this feeling. When you're able to stop the car, especially with anxiety, one of the biggest first questions you ask yourself is it true? A lot of the time, anxiety is about something that we're imagining. We don't know if it's true yet, but we will start imagining it. And unfortunately, getting back to the very beginning of what I was talking about, quantum physics, when we're feeling something and we're thinking something, we can literally create it into effect. We can do this in a challenging way, or we can also create things into existence in a very positive way. Either way is creative. Either way, we have a choice. But we have to be aware of the choice, and we have to be paying attention to what is going on with us. And the feelings will always show you first. A lot of times people are rolling and rolling and rolling with something, imagining something in their mind, and unfortunately, they're not stopping the car, they're not realizing it. They're literally on an autopilot of imagining something that's not even true. Hold on, let me look at you guys. What you're saying here. I keep getting anxiety and dialysis day, but I'm used to it already. I've been doing the work during sessions, but still have freakouts. I understand. And to be honest, it is a process. All of this, when you're learning to be with your emotions and you're learning to manage them in a constructive way, it's a process. And some days are better than others. But truly, the more that you do it, the better it's going to get. I see it all the time. How do we harness the energy that we're afraid of? And why is it easier to repeat patterns from the energies we're feeling? So how you harness the energy that you're afraid of, quite honestly, sometimes, and this is going to get into the subject of today on another level. I have had a few people now. It makes me a little emotional. I've had quite a few people who have had real challenges that they're afraid of because it has to do with the physical body. You know, one of the biggest things that we're all so afraid of is getting sick. And so many of us have watched loved ones die, be very sick, be in a lot of pain, have whatever experience. And it's terrifying to watch. It's terrifying to be with. And then when we have a moment where we go to the doctor and they tell us, hey, you got something here. It's terrifying. And the thing that I want to bring up today, and I'm so adamant about this, and this is the kind of thing that I wish that this was talked about from the rooftops everywhere. So I'm going to back this up just a smidge today, because I was talking with my friend Nadi, my dear, dear friend. You guys, many of you know who he is. He's my buddy back in Florida, and I was talking about this with him on my way to visit my brand new grandnephew, who, oh my gosh, it's such a joy to be with a brand new baby. So I was with my nephew and his beautiful wife and this little baby, and it's like, those are the balancing things in life. You know, he's just such a delight. So on the way there, I was talking with Nadi about this, and we were talking about, because he's been to the doctor, he's had health challenges in his life, and I was explaining that there's been so many situations where I hear people's stories of going to the doctor. Like many of you know, one of my dearest friends recently, you know, she went to the doctor and they say, hey, well, you got something. We don't know what it is yet. Could be cancer, but we won't know for a while. And the amount of times, and I was telling him this, that I have had people that I'm working with who are terrified because the doctor is saying, you know, this is a possibility. We don't know if it is that yet because, you know, we have to get the test back, but we think it might be this, or it might be that, or it might be whatever. And the amount of clients that have come to me and they have said, I'm terrified, it could be one of these things, and they don't know what it is. Their mind starts thinking about it. Their mind starts rolling on it, and they are creating this feeling. And they don't even know what the doctor's going to say. So I have to ground them and center them again and be like, look, you don't know what this is going to be yet. As I'm telling Nadi this, he goes, Audrey, he goes, when years ago, his father, who he was very, very close to, he had this moment with his father, and he's like looking at his dad, and he's like, what's up with you? He was bothered about something. His father's like, it's nothing, it's nothing. Finally, Nadi was like, what's going on with you? Well, I went to the doctor. The doctor said I have cancer, and I think I'm going to die. And Nadi was like, what? Well, Nadi goes and he does the investigation into it. Turns out his father had scar tissue. And here he is thinking he's going to die. The doctor didn't even know. And the amount of times that I have clients who are in their mind, or friends in their mind, and they're picturing this outcome because the doctor is throwing out these possibilities. That's not okay. So you have to get, if you don't know for sure, and you have this idea that somebody's putting in your mind, that can literally be very creative in the body. So what I tell people, and I'm telling you, this is the thing to shout from the rooftops. You know, we have put these doctors on pedestals like they know everything and they are the word. But when you go to a doctor and they say, well, we don't know what it is yet. It could be this, or it could be that, or it could be whatever. And all of them are not pretty, by the way. It is your right to look at the doctor and say ahead of time, listen, I don't want you to tell me what you think this might be. I don't want you to guess. I don't want you to say a single word until you know for sure This is what I have. Then, when you know for sure this is what I have, I only want you to tell me, how are we going to fix it? How are we going to make it better? Because when you start hearing all of this stuff, the amount of people that I have talked to that are terrified, and then they find out, oh, well, the doctor said it's really nothing at all. You lived in 2 weeks of terror. That's not okay. It's creative in the body. I'm sorry, I'm on a mission with this because these are the things that just send me over the moon. Doctors have no right to do that. If they're guessing, keep the guess to yourself until you know what I have. When I hold on, I can't see the rest of what this one says. Okay. No, they can't be doctors can't be qualified in everything. Doctor told me there's no cure for my kidney disease and that if I were 80, she'd do nothing because I'd be old, and that's what I'm seeing other people being treated minimally because they are old. Again, I think we have gotten to a point where, number one, people don't know how powerful they are. We're not taught how we can be healing in the body. I've told you guys the story before of my kidney stone. That thing hurt. And not one doctor told me, hey, you know what? There's a possibility that you can actually, do the work around this and get rid of that thing. The doctor sat back in his chair and he's looking at me and he says, well, you're going to have to pass that thing. It's probably going to hurt and it might be messy. And you've got the meds already that we've given you. If it gets too messy, come back in. He didn't say messy like that, but what he meant is you're going to go through hell to pass that thing. Well, I did not want to pass it, and to be very blunt about it, I got rid of it myself. I energetically knew what it was. It was lumps of undissolved anger. I knew what it was about, and I got rid of it. When we are thinking and we are feeling, I have a whole book over there on it. It's called Metaphysical Anatomy. And the amount of times that my clients come in and they have health challenges, whatever the thing is, I've opened my little book and I'll read the emotional stuff around it and they're like, oh my gosh. And we can fix it. And sometimes, yeah, we do need the doctors. Sometimes we do need that kind of assistance. But not if they're going to be scaring us, not if they're going to be spouting out stuff that's not actually true, it's not real. That's just terrifying, and that can create badly in the body. So it's important to really own your word. If you're going to the doctor and they've done some tests and the doctor looks like he's starting to, give you some hypothesis of what he thinks it could possibly be, it's well within your right to stop him or her in their tracks and say, no. You just tell me what it is when we know, and then we'll deal with it. And in the meantime, look at your symptoms. Get yourself a book of metaphysical anatomy. Are you holding on to anger? Are you holding on to old grief? Are you holding on to anxiety on a regular basis? Are you living in a state of fear? When we do those things, it's creative in the body. But again, we don't get taught that stuff as kids. But the amount of people that I have worked with who see their stuff and are able to be in the process of working through the anger, through the fear, through the anxiety, understanding what it is, and being present with themselves, then they have a fighting chance of doing something about it. Let me see what you guys are saying here. I am my own wise owl. Whew. Yes. It is Western medicine, unfortunately. We need to be reminded by word, which is what I do. You know, the reason why I do what I do is because I've been there, done that on so many levels. I have been there, done that. And I have had to own the health of my own body. I've had to own my own mind. And it has been a process. I was just telling somebody the other day, when I first started understanding that I was wildly dysfunctional, it was because my daughter was a mess. And I took her to this therapist that I had met, and it's like, she's a mess. She was a delightful mess. And the therapist looked at me and she's like, it's because of you. You need to straighten up. And so it was a year of going to this woman and reading every single book I could get my hands on. It was really such an interesting thing. Is one thing I'll never forget. She looked at me at one point and she goes, Audrey, you don't have any boundaries. And I looked at her and I was like, is a boundary something like a fence? I didn't even know what a boundary was. It was ridiculous. I was so dysfunctional. So worked with her for a year, then started going to Agape and started learning and understanding my spiritual power. Understanding my intelligence was huge, though I didn't learn that at Agape. I learned that through the fabulous Greg Braden. In fact, the book, The Divine Matrix, that's where you'll see some of these experiments that I was talking about. He was my introduction to, I'm not just this little dysfunctional, stupid person. I'm not stupid now, but I had a stupid program running. And so when I read Greg Braden, The Divine Matrix, which I highly recommend, it was like the light bulb went off and I realized, oh my God, I'm not stupid. I'm actually highly intelligent. And I am that I am. And when you get that part and you allow the universe to flow through you as you, that's what heals. That's what healed that kidney stone. It wasn't me. It was me being that I am. And when that flowed through my body in that second, I'm telling you, it's like that kidney stone went away and it never came back. So there's a part of this where it's not us healing our bodies, it's us allowing the perfection of our body to be the thing. And sometimes that's a hard thing to understand. It's a hard thing even to say, because we don't get taught when we're little, or we don't get reminded because we come in like that. I was looking at that baby today. Oh my God, I'm holding him and I'm just talking with him and he's cooing right back at me. And it's like, he's just looking at me like I'm you. You're me. We're that. We are that. And he's just like, I'm all good. It's a good life. And then we start learning our stuff and we start going through trauma and we start getting involved in the drama. And before you know it, we're not feeling the connection. I used to work at this rehab when years ago, it was on the beach. It was right at the cliff of the ocean. And I would take the clients to the edge of that cliff because a lot of them were just like, they just didn't know. So I would take them to the edge of this cliff and I would show them the ocean out there and I would use it as an example. And I would be like, see the ocean? That's kind of like the universe. The ocean's just ebbing and flowing and it's just being in its power. And you don't have to tell the ocean what to do. The ocean is just being the ocean. It's being that I am. And we're all like a little drop of ocean, in a drop of water in that ocean. And we're just a part of that grand, unnameable thing. But what happens is sometimes we get like a layer of oil around us and we feel separate from that. And that layer of oil is beliefs, it's fear, it's those feelings that we get, that we live in rather than experiencing and using. So the biggest thing that we can do in life is remember who we are. Remember that connection. Remember that the universe flows through us. And when we have those feelings, what is this? What do I need to do with this? Do I need to communicate with someone? Do I need to, what? Just let it go. Recognize the faulty thinking. There's all these things that we can do, but if we're just swimming in our thoughts on a challenging basis day after day, we get deeper and deeper and deeper enmeshed in this oil and not connected with who we are. We literally are so miraculous that we heal ourselves. There's this guy, Joe Dispenza, Dr. Joe Dispenza. He's another one of my favorite teachers. He does these workshops where people go for like 7 days, and he does these meditations. He's like phenomenal. And in these meditations, what he's doing is he's reminding us and he's showing us how to reconnect with the greater I am and how to use our energy to connect with that part of us that is nowhere, no one, no thing, nothing. That part of us that's already perfectly healed. So in these workshops, it's a full 7 days and you are enmeshed in it. And these people at the end of the time, they cure their stuff. He's got testimonial after testimonial after testimonial. So they're in the process, and he literally has monitors on their brains, some of them, and he is looking at what they're doing from their electromagnetic energy throughout their body and through their their synapses that's taking place in their brain, all of that firing that's taking effect, and they can read those things. But the biggest part is in the testimonials. These people come out another person because they get it. They understand who they are, how connected they are. So when we're looking at all of this, there's a big part of it where we have to remember and maybe sometimes relearn or learn all this information that I'm sharing right here. It's in all these different places that I've looked. You can look at heartmath.org. Bruce Lipton, Dr. Bruce Lipton, look at the biology of belief. That was one of my first teachings. It was an excellent book. Greg Braden, all of his material. Joe Dispenza, Dr. Joe Dispenza, all of his material. And there's all these teachers, Lynn McTaggart with her intention material. All of this, if you don't have the time to literally sit down and read a book while you're driving, I listen to this stuff all the time and I'm just ingesting it. But we have to be clear. It's important when we have a moment where fear creeps in. There's a part where we have to check ourselves. Is this real? Is it true? Let me see what you guys are saying here. Jen is saying, how do I overcome fear when I don't even really know exactly when or where it's coming from? I had a memory I want to share with you later, but I realized a few things about it, and it was little Jenny really upset about it. I'm going to address that, and then Wes, I'm going to address what you're saying here. So that part of little Jenny in the back seat, when I say that we're a car, all right, and the soul is the driver, the adult, that conscious part of us is the driver when we're being present, like you guys are present with me right now. We're learning new information, we're having this conversation, and it is a fairly calm moment for a lot of us. The kid in the back seat, that's the one that's holding the emotions. That's the one that's holding the trauma. That's the one that's got all the stuff that's going on. And then the number one driver is that higher part of us. So as we're driving and this moment comes in where we feel the fear come up, sometimes it's like you be the adult and it's like, is it from here? Is it from the kid in the back seat? And the kid in the back seat's like, I'm not talking. I'm not going to say a word. I'm just going to hold on to this stuff because It's too painful to talk about. It's too painful to look at. I don't want to go there at all. So it can be that that trauma, and this goes into what you're saying here, Wes. You guys bear with me. He's saying, what about when I want to be a dissociated, isolated mess, but the world is saying, go, do, and be something? There is a part of it, and this is something that I'm seeing over and over and over again with my clients. That thing about dissociating, that's the thing that creates where we don't know and we don't remember. I want y'all to be very clear. Most people dissociate. So trauma is like hitting a wall. Trauma is like, and the more we hit the wall, the more we have that trauma. And some traumas are little and some traumas are big. In my world, anything that is unlike love looks like trauma. So when we have too much trauma, it's like if you had your car and it actually was hitting a wall, it would get kind of mangled and it would be hard to roll in. And you'd obviously, if you had your real car, you'd take it to the mechanic and fix this thing. A lot of us didn't have a mechanic. I'm a mechanic now. And people come in with their trauma. It's like, let's fix it. Let's look at it. Let's deal with it. But most people didn't get the mechanic. So what happens is the trauma gets to be too much. So the car that's holding the trauma, the little kid in the back seat, is like, oh, this is just too uncomfortable. I don't want to be in this thing. So they create another car. And that car is going to be the one that moves forward. Sometimes that car is the one that goes into addiction. Sometimes that car is the one that goes into, I better be perfect. I better do everything just right. Sometimes that car is, I just get forgetful. I've had somebody who that car was like, I'm just going to look at the whole world through rose-colored glasses, and I'm just going to keep doing what I need to do, and I can't see the stuff. I just can't see any of the bad things. So whatever the way is that you work with your trauma, sometimes people are just like, I'm going to work a lot. I don't want to be in that painful car. I don't want to deal. So when we have a dissociative thing and we've got two cars that are rolling, I'm not going to remember what's in this car. It's just too painful. So when I'm working with people, what we do is we start to integrate and know that you can be present through the situations. Because instead of just rolling in the emotions in a unconscious way, we learn to roll with the emotions in a deliberate, intentional, constructive, gonna do this thing way. So then they start to be more and more and more integrated and owning their word, owning their power, owning their ability to be present. And sometimes the trauma of the past, sometimes we just have to let it go. Sometimes we have to acknowledge it and let it go. Sometimes with hypnosis, we have to put it back in the back burner because we don't really have to deal with it and relive it. But we definitely have to find that place to be present and to be the adult driver. Having the higher part of you, that number one driver, shining the light ahead of us, leading the way. So sometimes when we don't want to remember, I'll tell you this quick little story. When I was going through practitioner training, we were studying death the very first year, and it was like, bothered me. It really bothered me, and I didn't know why. And it was like, I don't know, something's bothering me here, and I could not figure it out. I was trying to figure it out, and it was just like not happening. And so I finally said, you know what? I'm going to put it on the back burner, and I'm going to just not be thinking about it until I know the answer, until something shows me the answer. Because, I mean, it was really bothering me. So the next year, training 2, we're studying death again. And it's like, shit, this thing is bothering me again. This time I'm like, I'm open to the answer. I know this answer is happening. And that day that it happened, I was driving to my class, and out of nowhere, this memory came of me as a little girl. I was terrified of dying. I'm laying in bed and it was like, ooh, I'm gonna die. And it just was so scary. I literally got up and I went and I climbed into my brother's bed so that I could have somebody there next to me because I was so scared. And then it struck me. This isn't my belief around death. I have no issues around death. I'm going to exit this vehicle and I'm going to have a party. And y'all are all going to be there. And we're going to have a good time. So it was the belief that I took on from society. Heaven forbid that people should die. Heaven forbid, let's keep that body alive even if they are gone. Heaven forbid they should exit the vehicle and go to the next expression of their soul. Nobody ever taught me that. You die, you're in the ground, you're dead, it's over. And I'm thinking, oh, that's very terrifying. So I had to redefine what my belief was around death. And now it's a part of life. We're in these human bodies to have this experience. And truthfully, you came into this human body so that you could experience love, so that you could experience joy, so that you could experience holding this little baby and just cooing and having them coo back at you. And having the love, having the joy, having all of those fun experiences that we get to have. But we get so enmeshed in the not even true stories that we forget that we're having a good time, that we came here to have a good time. So in 23, I think we all need to rise up and say, enough with the fear-mongering. Enough with the beliefs around all of this that don't support us having a good time. If you're in the moment now and you've got some breath in you, you can have a good time. It may be a challenging time. It may be that it's physically hurting. It may be that you have to clear up some messes. I'm going to just give you a quick little story again. Well, let me look at something here. You guys are all chatting and I'm missing it. Back here. Yeah, memories. How do you shut off? You know, I think that's the thing. That's the thing. And so many people want to do that. It's like, I just want to shut it off. I want to shut off the negative. I want to shut off the challenges. I want to shut off those memories. Somebody was just saying to me the other day, one of my clients, it's like, I just have these things, these pictures that keep rolling around in my mind. Excuse me, about whatever trauma. It's a habit that we get ourselves into. It's like something happens, and rather than look it square in the eye and understand your ability to say, I get it, this happened, I'm going to learn from this, I'm going to grow from it, and I'm never going to create this again. And if I do, I will deal with it different the next time around. But we have these things that happen. As an example, anonymous people come to me, just saying, and I had an anonymous couple. And I'm telling you, these two love each other. They've been married for all these years. How I know they love each other? Because they're so incredibly angry with each other. They're literally in my office and they were so angry. And it's all these years of angry, and trauma and drama and stuff. And here they are in this choice point. And it's like, what do you want? Well, I want her to be nicer. I want him to do this. Well, how is that going to happen when you both have these backpacks on your backs of all these memories that you're holding? None of it's even happening right now. He apologized. She apologized. It's like we have to learn that it's not strong, it's not powerful to hold on to being angry with each other. It's like whatever happened, everybody did it with the unconsciousness that they had at the time. I looked at both of them. I said, was it intentional what she did? No. Was it intentional what he did? And she had to think about it. It's like, well, actually, no, I guess it wasn't intentional. So what they're doing now is intentional. So when I say that when our feelings are happening, they're creative in the body. That kidney stone, lumps of undissolved anger, I knew exactly what it was. I was pissed off at someone. And luckily that person was able to come into town right when I was having that kidney stone. And I was able to look at it from a new perspective. And I was able to understand none of what they did was about me. Usually none of what other people do is about you. But we hold on to it like it is. And it's creative in the body. And it doesn't match why we came to be here. So for 23, if you're holding on to something that somebody else did back there, was it intentional? Probably not. And if it was it really about you? Or was it about them? A lot of time it's about them. So when you're looking at your experience here and being in the beautiful car that is like a miraculous thing, those 50 trillion cells, each one of them, think about it, it's like a little universe inside of you. You have 50 trillion little universes that are connected to this infinite intelligence. So when you are looking to move into a new year, what's your oil? What do you have surrounding you? And more importantly, what are you going to do to get rid of it? I have 5 minutes to look at your questions. How do you shut off? You don't shut off. You turn on. Brian's in the house. Brian Gagnon. Well, you get to hold off working because of your health. Instead of being nuts, how are you going to get productive with that? I get it that it drives you nuts, but now you have a blessing in your life. I know your story, and we talked about it. I'm very happy for you. Ah, Brian's operating at a very high frequency today. I like it, Brian. When did you start loving having an opinion? Can I just say, it was very late in life. You know, I just had my 60th birthday. Doing what I'm doing here and having this kind of like a very adamant talk, I never dreamed that I'd be doing this. It wasn't until, I don't know, maybe even very recently that I have had such a strong opinion and really been able to voice my opinion. And part of it is because I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit if anybody likes my opinion or not. Spirit is rolling here, and Spirit said, you got to do this. And some days I'm more inclined to do it. I was off for 2 weeks because I was like not feeling it. That's why you're getting the very adamant Audrey today. Because I'm going through a liberal arts education instead of memorizing texts. They're asking for my opinion, so own it. As are you, Wes. You are truly a force. You're a very clever force, by the way. I love how you think. Your brain is fun. I just posted something with your little comment today. Jason's in the house. You guys, Jason is the one that does the Tuesday night men's group. Wes, you might be interested in that. He's amazing. We're saying, fuck yeah, I like it. I want to control to shift what I don't want. So when you want to control and to shift what you don't want, sometimes when we're pushing away what we don't want, instead of looking it square in the eye and saying, this is not who I am, this is not what I'm claiming, this is not what I choose. What do you choose? You get to choose. But when we're pushing it away or we think it's greater than us, then we have no control over it. But when you're able to look something square in the eye and be like, no, this is not what I am choosing from this point. And there's an adjustment. And then there's another adjustment. But if we keep pushing something away, if we don't own our power to realign ourselves in whatever the thing is, then you can't do it. It's just that simple. So when you are wanting to shift something, there's a few things involved in doing that. But one of the most important ones of it is, this is no longer a choice. I'm choosing again, and we get to do that. So you look at your timeline and you look at what you had done in the past and what that looked like. And more importantly, where did you pick up the thing to begin with? Where did you pick up whatever the stuff is? You know, when we're looking at our timelines, that's a big part of all of this. And that's for another night. Yes, the force is with me. I am with the force. I love it. Brian, I will do the dishes when I've ever. So I shift. All right. I love all these comments, you guys. I'm looking at the time. I have a minute. In LA, can we be expressive and messy and authentic? Absolutely. I was just expressive, messy, and authentic in this hour. Just saying. I'm grateful for you too, Carla and Gigi. Come join you. Where are ya? Is he single? Is who single? I'm missing that part. All right. Okay, yeah, he is happily married, and his beautiful wife is here on Wednesday nights with a women's empowerment group. So I love you all very, very much. Next time I see you, we're going to be in 23. So own your intentions. Literally look at what the oil is. Look at those things that you might be in fear of. Fear, false evidence appearing real. Or fuck everything and run. Seriously. It's all good. Realign, realign, realign. So I'll see you guys next week. I love you very, very much. I'm so glad that you joined me here tonight. You're welcome to share this. And I'll catch up with you next week. Bye, guys.